Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our January webinar titled Networking. My name is Chris Hawks. I'm a training specialist for AmeriCorps VISTA. I'll be your host for today's webinar. You'll also see our webinar support team, LSI, monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. And today I'm also joined by my colleagues, Stephen Bronskill and Stephanie Hunter, who are also part of the VISTA training unit team. So I'll pass it to them for some introductions. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with everybody today. I work with Chris on the training team here at AmeriCorps VISTA and Stephanie as well. I'm an AmeriCorps alum of a program that wasn't VISTA, but it led me to become a 10th grade biology teacher. I met some amazing young people. And I'm thrilled to be here today because networking was a really important part of my AmeriCorps service. Tried to find resources for the students I was so lucky to work with in my classroom, and I'm excited to share some of those stories today. So I'll pass to Stephanie now to share some of her background.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Stephanie Hunter. I'm really excited to be with you here today to talk about networking. I work as the training development specialist for AmeriCorps VISTA headquarters, but I also served a term as an AmeriCorps member and as an AmeriCorps VISTA member and as an AmeriCorps VISTA leader. And networking was really important to both of my service years. So I'll speak a little bit more later on today about how networking played a role in my service terms.
Thanks so much, Stephanie and Stephen. And yeah, we'll hear a bit more from you all in just a second. But beforehand, I just want to take a quick look at our agenda. The focus of this webinar is on exploring the value of networking in your VISTA project, creating a networking plan to foster relationships, and discussing your networking plan with other VISTA members. You have been provided with a handout to help you in creating a networking plan, which you will use throughout today's session. That was emailed out this morning by Stephen Bronskill. Emailed ahead, and we'll also include it in the chat right now. Yep, Stephen just included a link to it in the chat. If you cannot, for any reason, access the handout, that is totally fine. Feel free to grab, a piece of paper and pen to take notes. That's totally okay. As we go through the following slides, when you see the document icon displayed on the screen, reference your handout or the piece of paper. If you're on the phone and maybe you don't have access to a computer at the moment, that's totally okay as well. Just listen along. Then later on in the session, we will have a breakout activity where you will be split up into groups of around 4 to 5 people to discuss the networking plans you developed earlier in the session. The breakout room is your opportunity to speak with other VISTA members and share ideas about networking. Should be cool. We're looking forward to it. We are excited about the opportunity to connect with one another during today's session, but want to give grace for technology and give space for everyone to participate. So again, if any technical issues do arise, we are happy to connect after the session to make sure you have access to all the materials and support your networking plans further. So with that said, I'll pass it to Stephen. Hey, Stephen.
Chris, thank you so much again for all of that. And folks, thanks for answering the chat question today. It looks like you've got a great understanding of what networking is. I truly think this topic is unique to every single one of us in the communities we live in. I love that we're introducing ourselves in the chat as well. I served in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I love that we have some Arkansas folks here. I'll share a couple stories from that. But to relate this to your VISTA service, networking is about building relationships with people who will help you accomplish your VISTA assignment description goals. It's why we're here. We cannot do this alone. We can't end poverty in a year by ourselves. We've got to build coalitions and connections. And so we need a plan to make that happen. We're excited for you to be able to share some of your best practices and questions with each other to strengthen what we're all doing as a VISTA team. We'll work on this networking plan that Chris mentioned throughout the webinar. But first, let's talk about the types of networking you might be encountering as a VISTA member. So there are lots of types of networking. We'll chat about a few. First one is social media. And I just want to share, we all use social media really, really differently, whether that's generationally, whether that's the type of community we live in, right? You might cringe a little bit at this example, but I actually loved using Facebook events as an AmeriCorps member. It was a great way to learn about things in my community. You might use a different social media tool, and that's totally okay. You might also find friends of friends who work for a partner organization of your VISTA site. It's a great way to see who's in your community and who you might want to reach out to. You might see a grant opportunity posted on Instagram. I live in Philadelphia now, and I saw the mayor's office post a grant this week on their Instagram page. You might also see on LinkedIn an old classmate who's looking for ways to volunteer, whether that's in your community or somewhere around the country. These social media sites are a helpful tool because they generate leads for you, lists of people to reach out to, and also provide a platform to send messages, right? A direct message or comment to schedule a networking meeting. You might look at some things in person as well. Events in person are another tool to connect with partners in your community. You could consider looking at a local event calendar to find opportunities to connect with others. You might want to sign up for an online newsletter. Many nonprofits and civic organizations send out a weekly update of what's going on with them. I was in a really rural community, and I actually found the local newspaper to be really helpful. They had a weekly calendar of events. It wasn't posted anywhere online. I had to get the physical paper copy, but it was a great way to learn what was going on and how I could work to help students through that. And lastly, your interpersonal networks are a hugely important piece. We're going to be talking most about this today. This is what we build as a community. Peers, coworkers, other VISTA members you interact with at your project site. That's what we're going to be focusing in on together today. So specifically, we're going to be talking about networking at your project site. But I do want to mention before we go too far into this, that these fundamental skills can be applied in a lot of different ways. It can be for you looking for future opportunities after your VISTA service. And networks that you might be bringing into this work could be personal. It could be a book club. It could be professional, a recruiting or networking event. It could be academic, a study group. It could be religious, like a class at a house of worship. So I do want to encourage you right now to share in the chat. What are some networks that you are currently a part of through your VISTA project? I'd love to hear some ideas. Sometimes networking is easiest where networks already exist, and we don't need to build them ourselves. We can organize where there's organization. So I'm curious what folks are involved in. I love that we got the Massachusetts Community Action Program. Thanks, Hannah. Alex working with the National Park Service. Yeah, national parks everywhere. So maybe some cool folks to connect with around the country. Some coworkers, social media. Thanks, Victor. I see they're coming in quick now, but yeah, Nonprofit Alliance, Food Rescue, public schools, baseball leagues. Yeah, finding ways to bring people together, finding things in common to connect with. These look different all across the country, but I bet if you look around your community and your VISTA site, you'll find some you can tap into. So I would scroll through the chat. I know it's moving quickly, but maybe look at some inspiration from your fellow VISTA members and think about adding that into your networking plan as we develop that today. So keep them coming. Thank you all so much for sharing this. I love to see it. It looks like we already have a lot of great ideas. So as I mentioned, networking is a tool to help you succeed, accomplishing your VISTA goals this year, but also your goals beyond. As a public servant, as someone who's working to do good work in our community over the long term. And one important benefit of networking is sharing ideas with your fellow VISTAs and community members. That's why today we wanted you to be able to be in breakout rooms. We hope you'll see firsthand how exchanging best practices, asking questions, talking about common challenges. We know VISTA service is tough, but we know talking about it together can help. And as someone who became a classroom teacher through my AmeriCorps experience, I found exchanging ideas with colleagues at my service site, whether it was in the teacher's lounge, Friday night lights at football games for our local high school, and just in our local community, seeing them at the grocery store, to be a big part of what got me through my service experience to help me thrive. Networking also provides new opportunities. So it could mean looking for a mentor in your community. It might help you plan a future career or educational pursuit after your service. It could also involve you finding new volunteers, donors, or supporters for your VISTA project. And as you network, you'll build your self-confidence. As a new AmeriCorps member, I found it really intimidating at first to introduce myself to other staff at the school I work with, or with the families of my students at first. But over time, however, these colleagues became people I could rely on and work together with to support students in our classrooms. And finally, you'll build long-lasting lasting relationships. The folks that I served with in AmeriCorps are friends to this day. They're some of the best people I know. Networking at your VISTA project may start with a simple interaction. For me, it was calling families in my classroom and saying that they had a great student and was excited to work with them. However, we hope the tools we discussed today will help you build the foundation of strong relationships with partners that will support you in your personal and professional career in public service. So with all that, we're going to start working on our networking plan. And this is a guide to help you determine logistics as you plan and set up a networking opportunity. These are things you may already be doing, but we want to break it down so you've got some clear instructions and hopefully spark some ideas about how to move forward. So there's several parts of a plan. First, you should talk with your VISTA project. They've existed before we've been there, right? And so it's worth asking who in your community your project's already connected to and what types of connections they might need right now. You should also ask, what are the current needs and what are you trying to accomplish by networking? Is it trying to find more volunteers? Is it trying to find more financial resources, contributions, or is it something else? And next, networking is about a partnership. We also want to be able to share with others, asking what we can contribute. Do you have resources, information, or partnerships to offer the person you're meeting with? Finally, identifying who you're going to reach out to, when you'll be able to do this, and where you'll do this. This looks really, really different depending on the type of community you live in and what makes people most comfortable. So we will talk through this more in depth. You'll see this in your worksheet, but want to walk through this one by one. So in designing the plan, we need to address what is networking, what is not networking. Networking is building relationships for a purpose. In this case, that's to help your VISTA project succeed and to help achieve your VISTA assignment description goals. You'll come to your networking meeting with an agenda, an ask, and a clear next step or steps. This differs from hanging out and socializing with friends, right? We're not going through all that just to spend time with some friends. It's not a transactional relationship either. It's not, I do this for you, you do this for me. And so with all this in mind, we're going to move on to the first part of a networking plan. What's the goal of the opportunity? What do you hope to accomplish by networking? And so on your networking handout or on a piece of paper, like Chris said, it is totally fine if that's not accessible to you right now. We're just here together and want to share ideas and help each other out. Just want you to reflect for a moment. What do you hope to accomplish through networking? Why did you join today's webinar? Do you want to gain funding for a project, learn about a topic, recruit volunteers? We'll take a moment just to let you fill that in your networking guide. We can put that in the chat one more time if you need it. You can save a copy on your computer. I'm just going to pause for a moment. We can put on a little music and just let you fill that out. And if you'd like to share in the chat what your goals are for networking, you're most welcome. Give folks just a minute here. Folks, about 30 more seconds. Thanks, Rosalind, for sharing. Keep them coming. All right. This is amazing. I'm loving what I'm seeing in the chat. Keep it going. If you need more time, we completely understand. A networking plan is tough to do in a minute, but I do want to give you some more resources here, but I encourage you to look at some of what your colleagues are sharing all across the country. This is wonderful, right? learning about what folks who are receiving SNAP need, building relationships for a purpose, making sure we understand future opportunities, helping hunger, homelessness, recruiting new volunteers. This is amazing. And so I really encourage you to keep sharing. This is great. This is what we'll be talking about in our breakouts as well. So very excited for y'all to be able to connect. But I want to take us to our next step. We're going to keep having a chance to develop this plan. So no worries if you're feeling, oh, I'm just getting started. We got you. And we understand this is a process. We're here to help you over the long term as well. And we'd love to continue working with you to develop these plans as we move forward. So you're probably wondering how you decide who to network with. You could reach out to anyone in your community, right? We talked about all those different types of networking. You want to be thinking about your existing networks and your extended contacts. Thinking about who can help you achieve your VAD goal, who's best equipped to help you do that. And remember that your project supervisor and your colleagues at your site might be helpful in answering that question. But for today's activity, we want you to do your best with yourself, thinking of a few stakeholders you'd like to network with. And we'll use them when developing our networking plan today. So again, we're going to give you a moment to take that handout or a piece of paper or just by yourself. Just think through your VISTA project, your VAD goals, your local community. Who are some stakeholders that could help you achieve your goal, or who are you already working to connect with? We'll give folks another moment. If you'd like to share in the chat, I love that we've got my supervisor. That's a great one. Feel free to share in the chat if you'd like to. Anyone that you're considering networking. I love it. We got board members. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Others at your work site. If you're struggling to think of something right now, that's okay. A question I love asking in any type of networking is, who should I talk to next? And maybe get a handful of folks that someone you are connected with and refer you to. I love fellow VISTA members, colleagues, people in the role before you. I know not everyone has the gift of knowing their former VISTA member, but I totally agree. Thinking about institutional knowledge, connected to a VISTA leader, like Stephanie mentioned earlier. Really, really nice. Looking at other agencies who do similar work in the field that you're in, school districts, wonderful. So if this was difficult, we're going to keep sparking some ideas here, but want to take us to our next step of the process. And that's once you've identified who you want to network, you need to consider what type of networking meeting you'll need to have with them. I'm excited to bring in Stephanie for this part. The first type of meeting is called an introductory networking meeting. That's a meeting to begin building a relationship with a partner. It's usually the first time you're talking with this person. Often it's the most critical, as you'll each discover if the other person is a good fit for their needs. So as I mentioned, really lucky to welcome VISTA Training Unit staff member, Stephanie Hunter, who's a VISTA alum and a VISTA Leader alum, to share an example of an introductory meeting from her service. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So in my VISTA member service here, I worked with a nonprofit that did SNAP outreach work. So part of my networking experience from that service year involved when I identified a farm that had already been a SNAP approved, and they already had a mobile food distribution operation in place. And so I met with them to talk about the work that they did and the education work that the nonprofit I was working for did, because I wanted to talk about a potential for a partnership where they could distribute educational resources about SNAP that my organization and I had developed in my VISTA project.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That is really helpful. We'll come back to you in a moment to discuss our next type of networking meeting, which we call a maintenance meeting. And this is a conversation to retain, develop, and support partners you've already connected with. These are important to make sure you don't lose the contact or contacts. Stephanie, you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, the nonprofit that I work for already had a connection with the Legal Aid Society of Virginia. They work with clients to apply for SNAP in that capacity. So I regularly kept in contact with our Legal Aid Society contacts in order to share more information about SNAP, provide additional educational resources, and provide updates about things in the SNAP world that could be shared with their clients as they were applying for benefits.
Incredibly helpful. Thanks for sharing that story, Stephanie. The final type of meeting is called an escalation networking meeting. And this is where we ask an existing partner to take a greater role in your VISTA project. And so, Stephanie, I think you've got an example for that as well.
Yes, so my supervisor during my VISTA service year introduced me to a contact that she had already worked with who worked for a state government office that helped to administer SNAP. So I met this person as a way of trying to connect them with the work we were doing at the nonprofit and invite them to become more involved with us in our education and outreach efforts. So we already had the connection, but we were trying to get them involved to do even more.
Stephanie, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. We're really excited to bring you back for the Q&A. Stephanie, again, is a VISTA alum, and so want her to be able to answer a lot of your questions as we continue to reflect on our networking plan. So thanks so much for joining us. You now have your goal and your meeting type after hearing from Stephanie's examples. The next thing you should do is decide where and when this meeting will take place. As I mentioned, we serve in really diverse places all across the country. To determine when you'll network with somebody, take a look at your schedule for the next week, whether you put that in a planner or on your phone or Outlook or anything like that for the week or weeks ahead. I'd encourage you to pull it up right now. And some questions you might want to reflect on is, what does your week look like coming up? How does networking fit into your work plan? Do you have the most flexibility in the morning, at lunchtime, in the afternoon? It's going to be different for every VISTA project. And how many networking meetings do you want to schedule per week? It doesn't need to be 20 per week, but do you want to shoot for 2 or 3? And what do you need to communicate to your supervisor or colleagues about your networking schedule? Is there any space you need to create to make sure your other tasks can get done? And then also considering the person you're trying to connect with. What's their availability like? And so when deciding where you'll network, take consideration of what would be most convenient for the stakeholder and what would best facilitate building the strongest relationship. So some examples could include them coming to you at your VISTA project site. It could be on Zoom or Google Hangout or any other type of video conference tool, or just picking up the phone and calling. It could be at the stakeholder's office or at a public place like a library, a community center, a coffee shop, or another location. So I'd love to hear, if you'd like to put in the chat right now, just some places that you've met in the past, any ideas you might have. So I love virtually using an office phone. Catalina, I think that's a great example. Called a lot of people, me too. Big part of AmeriCorps service. Art co-op, Grace, that sounds really nice. Vivian, I love the coffee shop, community center. Volunteering with people is a great way to network too. I love this, the museum. I'm very jealous. There's the old trusty Zoom. So if you're looking for inspiration, I think this is a really good time. Scroll through and look at what your colleagues are sharing at a national park. That is awesome. And so I appreciate folks sharing. Please feel free to keep them coming. At this point, you've hopefully got the logistics for your meeting figured out. And so I want to share a couple other questions to guide your discussion during your networking meeting. This is where it gets a little bit trickier. And so one of the things I'd consider thinking about is, what do you need from the person you're meeting with? Remember, we're building a relationship. It's not a transaction, but we want to know our goal. You might want to talk to your VISTA supervisor for help here. You also want to think about what you have to offer the person and what questions you have for that person. And so I do want to give folks another moment here, your handout, piece of paper, one more time, or just reflecting yourself. Reflect on what your project needs, what the project might be able to offer, and any questions you might have for this person during the meeting. So give folks a moment here. Thanks, Chris, for sharing that link one more time. If anyone does want to share parts of this, I understand this could be a lengthier answer, but would encourage you to share it in the chat. Would love to hear some of the goals that you have for folks, some of the things you might be able to share, and any questions you might want to be bringing into that meeting. We'll give folks a moment here with the handout. Feel free to jot that down, write anything in the chat that you'd like. Do some good reflecting and thinking. Excited to hear more about these great meetings as we go into breakout. All right, it's coming quick now, and I know these are lengthier responses, so I do want to encourage you when you get some quiet moments to go back through and look through. but I really like Hannah sharing relevant resources. That's amazing. Thinking about how we can help distribute outreach materials, really good. Catalina sharing, thinking about coming up with some joint programs for older adults and communities. So thinking about places we're going to do media partners and advertising space, really nice. Thanks for sharing about bridging education and employment. I think that is such an important issue when we're networking. It's a really, really key piece. I really like this idea about asking for interest in cooperating and not duplicating programs. Really, really nice, right? And so we see that this starts to get a little bit complex. It starts to become really unique to our individual VISTA projects. And this is where I really want to give you all the opportunity to share together. And that's coming soon. But thank you for taking time to reflect. Thanks for taking time to share if you felt comfortable. I do hope this networking plan is helpful in structuring what you were looking to do with your project. I really like Rebecca's answer here too about thinking about meeting in the back of a restaurant. I have done a bunch of those meetings in my past service as well. Thinking about networking with speakers, giving presentations, really nice. I see some good questions in here as well. You can see the chat is moving quickly. Please hang on to those, and we promise to get to them at the end here. But looking forward to continuing to work through this with you and hearing your great ideas. I really like the idea of planning a star party, sharing ideas during the activity, sharing communications about food distribution dates at a food bank. Really nice. So thank you all so much again for sharing. Let's talk about the meeting itself. Once you've gotten all those pieces of the plan for your networking conversation, you need to know what you're going to talk about. So we're going to make an agenda here together. The first is to set expectations. You want to share how much time you have. Let them know this is just the beginning of a relationship. There'll be lots to talk about during your VISTA service, and share your story. We encourage you to take a look at the link we're going to share in the chat from a past webinar on sharing your VISTA story. This is a time to share why you're committed to your VISTA project, why their support is important. We had a really nice conversation a few months back with some VISTA members on a webinar. Hope you'll take advantage of it. We also know this is something you do wonderfully every day, sharing why you're in this fight, why you're working so hard to alleviate poverty in your community, and what you're looking forward to. A huge piece is listening. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We want to use that ratio when we're networking. We want to ask folks to share their story, listen to their interests, passions, past involvement. You can ask guiding questions and listen to how they got involved and how they got started with this work. And we want to listen and connect with folks over shared values. Build that personal relationship and explain the vision of your VISTA project. What have you been working on so far? You can peel back the curtain a little bit and share how they fit in to your strategy and what your organization is doing. And finally, and this is sometimes the scariest one, we want to ask for what we need. Donating, volunteering, connecting your VISTA project to resources. There were some wonderful examples in the chat about collaboration on issues. I do just want to share a successful networking meeting ends with a commitment to take action. You take one thing away, that our meeting should end with action. You should have a specific date, time, objective, and follow-up plan for how you're going to get done what you set out to do. You're putting a lot of thought and care and intentionality into building these plans. We want to make sure you leave with a clear idea of what you're going to do together moving forward. So I really appreciate you listening to the plan. We're going to get into the discussion, but I do want to pass it back to Chris to share a little review.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. As Stephen mentioned, just want to go over a quick review question. So you should see a poll pop up in just a second on your screen. So what we ask is that you look at the networking plan that a VISTA has made for an upcoming networking meeting with a potential partner. So you see that on the right-hand side of the screen. What else should be added to the plan? So you see that there are 4 items on the plan that this VISTA has already placed on the plan. Decide what your project needs, share your VISTA story, listen and connect, that Stephen was just talking about, and ask for resources. So there's an additional one that should be added to this plan, and that's part of the poll question. So we'll ask that you choose the best answer from the 4 options in the poll that should be added to the plan. So we'll give this a good 30 seconds or so. I'll be quiet as you respond, and we'll come back in just a second. Oh, we might be having some trouble with some viewing the poll. So if you cannot view the poll, yes, as you see in the chat, yes, please respond in the chat. It does look like we're having some issues with getting the poll to load. Oh, it might be coming up. Nice, yeah, can see a bunch responding now. Give it another 15 seconds or so to get everyone a chance to respond. Okay, it looks like it's slowing down, and the vast majority look to have responded. Sorry about those technical issues at the beginning, but thank you so much for your responses and the participation there. So as Minnie stated in the chat, and hopefully those who saw the answers in the chat did not have those answers influence your decision, but the correct answer is indeed B, that the vast majority either placed in the chat and as well responded in the poll. We had 79% respond B in the poll. So prepare a description of what your project has to offer. When networking and building a relationship with a potential partner, it's important to share what you and your VISTA project can do for them. So thanks so much for your responses there. And yeah, I'll pass it back to Stephen.
Chris, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for participating. We know some of the best advice for networking and succeeding at your project site comes from your fellow VISTA members. And so that's why we're really excited now for you to have an opportunity to meet a few of your VISTA colleagues in a breakout room. So I want to invite you, if you'd like, you may turn on your VISTA camera, join us in doing so. If you're in a place where it's convenient, you feel comfortable doing so. If not, no worries. You can participate in the breakout room off camera. It's all good. We want you to be here no matter what. And in a few moments, you'll be put into a breakout room with 4 to 5 other VISTA members. In your room, you'll have 10 minutes to share what you've drafted so far in your networking handout or on a piece of paper. You can provide feedback to your colleagues as they share. If you join by phone and don't have that handout, or if you weren't taking notes, it's totally okay. We know you are really busy as a VISTA member. Just listen in, share your thoughts and ideas, and connect with others. If you need captioning in your breakout room, you can select the raise hand button or the question mark symbol, and we'll be there to assist you. You'll also be unmuted, so you can speak with the other participants, and your camera is again optional. When the 10 minutes is up, we'll bring you back to the main room, we'll wrap up, we'll do a Q&A. And I just want to share a couple of quick reminders. We want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to share, so please make space for your VISTA colleagues today. And please, as Chris mentioned earlier, give each other grace with technology. Zoom is never perfect, but we hope this is a chance to connect with one another and learn from each other. So one more time, your assignment is to share with your group parts of your networking plan and ask any questions you may have. You'll have 10 minutes. We'll come back at 47 past the hour, and we will see you soon. Good luck. Breakout rooms should be open shortly. Thanks, everybody. Been working on specifically would love to hear a little bit about your next steps after this webinar for your networking plan. What do you still have to work on? And appreciate everyone giving grace for technology. I hope you were able to connect with some folks. If you weren't, there'll be lots more opportunities in the future. Hope it was helpful to hear what your peers are working on. And so as a next step in your networking handout and also in the chat, we'd love to hear, again, what are your next steps to implement? Are you going to reach out to your supervisor for more information? Are you ready to schedule a meeting with a stakeholder? I'm looking at some of the great things in the chat, trying to set up more group meetings for owners, and their feedback helps community and resources. Thanks for sharing that, Norma. Attending more networking events. Actually, I love that. Yeah, I love that the breakout room was good. I hope you got to meet some cool people. Chris is going to talk about this more later, but we've got some great resources like this to connect, to continue these conversations, and we want to provide this resource more moving forward as well. Keep them coming in the chat. I love that we've got folks working on lesson plan tools, attending more relevant networking events and meetings, connecting with more VISTAs. Yes, finding out more services from other nonprofits. This is so cool and inspiring. And again, I'm incredibly grateful just on behalf of our whole VISTA team for what all of you do every day. We know this is incredibly hard work and important work, and it helps when we do it together. So I hope you feel like you've got a next step, like you got a few extra tools today in your toolbox to connect with your community, to work to fight poverty. I hope we can continue these conversations moving forward. So Chris, would love to hear if you see anything else that's great in the chat, but I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. And thanks everyone for the participation, and love the comments. I wish there were more time for those of you commenting that, you wish you had a bit more time to connect. Hopefully there will be more in the future. And as Stephen mentioned, we can try to guide you to with some suggestions to connect with your colleagues across the country. Just taking a look at this slide for recommendations for further study as you're planning for your networking meetings, we would certainly encourage you to check out a few articles that we have here. You could see on the screen, and we also include all of these and the links to them in the handout. It's at the very bottom of that networking plan handout. Well, you'll also be able to access these links in the copy of the presentation that we'll share on the VISTA campus as well with the recording. So you see those, feel free to take a look and check those out. And before we wrap up and get to Q&A, again, just a friendly reminder that we will continue to post these recordings of the monthly webinars and the handouts on the VISTA campus a few days after the webinar. Ideally by tomorrow afternoon, we'll have it all posted. So you just need to navigate to the campus at learn.americorps.gov and log in. Once logged in, you can click on catalog where you see the red square. That will bring you to all of the learning paths available to you. Under catalog, you'll see that you can also filter by members if easier, because there are several learning paths. And so all these recordings are posted to the appropriate learning path. If it's your first time accessing that specific learning path, you'll just have to enroll and join, just a couple of clicks. And then once you've joined that learning path, you can browse through all of the available recorded webinars at your leisure. So for example, today's recording will be posted tomorrow to the campus under the My Professional Development Learning Path in the campus catalog. And we'll send out an email to everyone who has attended once that's posted. Please also take a couple of moments to give us feedback on the webinar. We are constantly reviewing the content, trying to make it better for future AmeriCorps members, for future webinars. We want to know how we can improve the presentation, how we can make it better, what worked, what maybe didn't. Already saw a couple of comments that more time was wanted. Hey, let us know in the evaluation. That's totally okay. Yeah, just ask that you take a couple of moments. We'll drop the link. Looks like Misty just dropped the link in the chat, and it also should pop up as you exit. So with that being said, we'll look at Q&A. We'll have a few minutes here. And I know we typically on these webinars have the Q&A option at the bottom. We do not have that today. So if you have some questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat. And Stephen and Stephanie, I don't know if you've already seen a question. If so, please, let me know. I'm kind of scrolling through myself right now.
Yeah. Chris, we had a really busy and engaged chat today, and I just wanted to thank everybody for your full participation. Again, I wish we could all be in a room somewhere and share ideas. Zoom is the next best thing, but it's not perfect. So definitely want to give more time in the future and continue these relationships I see building. These are some wonderful shout outs to each other. This is the kind of collaboration that really made my AmeriCorps experience special. As Chris mentioned, though, we'd love to answer any questions. We've got some great resources here from Stephanie, who's a VISTA alum and a Leader alum. Would love to hear any challenges you're having with networking, anything that came up from the presentation or clarifying the handout anywhere, we'd love to hear. As you're typing, I will also share, I sent an email out this morning with these materials. Definitely would love to follow up with you if you have specific questions. And so feel free to follow up with me if for some reason we don't get to your question today, or if something comes up later today or tomorrow and you want to reach out, don't hesitate to. So I see a question from Romana, and Chris, you're going to mention this in our next slide, but how can folks connect with other VISTAs, Chris?
Yeah, great question, Romana. So we would highly recommend checking out the VISTA Connect portion on the VISTA campus. So the VISTA campus, as you know, it consists of these learning paths that we just talked about, where the recorded webinars are housed. But there's also another part of the VISTA campus called VISTA Connect. We'll show a screenshot in just a second. And it's a great place to go to make a post and to meet your colleagues. It's actually, you can use the topics to start a topic. In the past, there's been topics on best practices, sharing resources, but also connecting with colleagues to share experiences. So an example here, if you want to continue the conversation with a colleague that you just met in the breakout room, or maybe just heard from in the chat today, would totally recommend heading over to VISTA Connect after the webinar, start up a topic, and it'd be a great way to reach out. You could, share contact information if you'd like, or direct message. And you could also consider posting about, at least one networking event that you organize, or one that's coming up. So highly recommend that, to check out VISTA Connect, events that allow VISTA. And I'm checking the chat. I know we're getting a little short on time, but also saw if there's a way. Peggy's asking if we can provide a list of contact information for all VISTAs and their projects. We cannot provide that, unfortunately, Peggy, just due to PII. So that's why we recommend using VISTA Connect. If you can reach out on your own, by all means, but we cannot provide contact information of all the VISTAs. I'm sorry about that. I know it would make things easier to connect that way. Also, you can save the chat for this webinar as well. If you go down to the bottom and click the ellipses, and there should be an option to save the chat. Stephen, do you see anything else?
Yeah, I see a good question from Deirdre. This is actually a separate login from your my.americorps.gov account. If you're having any issues accessing VISTA Connect, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We want to make sure you can use this resource. And I hope some of the tools from this webinar are helpful in reaching out to your fellow VISTAs. We know it can sometimes be a challenge, but it always works well when we get together. Chris, I know you have some things to wrap up, but Stephanie, any final words or advice you want to share? I do want to thank everybody for everything, but yes, Stephanie, anything you want to share?
Sure. Yeah, just one last question I saw in the chat. Alex asked, are there any events that allow VISTAs to connect? And I did just want to share that while VISTA headquarters does not have formal events set up for VISTAs to connect, there are often a lot of networking type events by region or by city or by state. I know I served in Richmond, Virginia, and our AmeriCorps alums chapter was very active, which was a great way for me to meet other VISTA members, as well as other AmeriCorps alumni from other AmeriCorps programs. So I encourage you to check out if your region has an AmeriCorps alums chapter, or if there's any other VISTA projects or AmeriCorps projects in your area that you might be able to connect with. That could be another way to connect more locally.
Great call, Stephanie. Thanks for pointing that one out. And I would echo Stephen and Stephanie just to thank everyone, for your participation throughout the session today and with these questions and the breakout rooms. It's been great. Just have a couple more notes. We have another webinar coming. Our next one is coming up in March, actually March 22nd. It will be community engagement as the topic. Same time, start time, it starts at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's also on a Wednesday, March 22nd. We'll have that registration info up on the VISTA campus calendar shortly. It's not there quite yet, so you can't register quite yet, but we should have it shortly. And once it is posted, we'll send out an email to everyone inviting you to register. So take a look, or keep an eye out for that, and friendly reminder to keep your email addresses updated in your My AmeriCorps account so that you continue to receive those notices. So thank you so much again for your participation today. Thank you for serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA member and all that you do in your communities. It's so appreciated. We love you. We love what you do, and just a big thank you. Wish you a great rest of the week and rest of January. This will conclude today's webinar. Hopefully we can see you over on VISTA Connect in a bit. But thank you so much. Feel free to disconnect.